would like to welcome everyone to the March 26, 2019 Planning Commission meeting. And in case you haven't noticed, the City of Stillwater recording and broadcasting equipment are being relocated. And so we are going to have a little bit of a old school meeting using our big boy and big girl voices today. The broadcast computer and presentation and voting software and microphones are out of commission, but we hope to see them next week. We apologize in advance for any inconvenience this may cause. We're going to be working from handouts, and there are a few available for the public as well. So with that said, let's get on with our meeting. We have several public hearings. So the first item of business is land use item for discussion and possible action. Item A is Baymere LLC preliminary plat, SUB 19-03, requesting review and approval of a commercial preliminary plat of property addressed as 1220 West 12th Avenue in a commercial shopping CS and office O district. We will first start with our staff presentation.
Thank you. Lance Gross with Development Services. And I'll go ahead and start on the second page of your handout, the area map. The hatch pattern on the map is the subject site. It's just to the north of 12th Avenue, and 11th Avenue is on the north side. It currently has a PUD on it, and the base zoning is commercial and also office. And I'll move to the next map, or the next slide. It's a street view. That street view is looking straight to the north. And this was taken prior to any development on the site. To the next page shows the preliminary plat. And you can see the subject site is split up into 6 different lots. There are 5 office lots and 1 commercial. The commercial lot is where the pharmacy is currently under construction. And the findings for this case, the proposed preliminary plat meets all the subdivision and zoning requirements. A preliminary PUD has been approved. The third one is that all the structures within this development will be residential in style. And the requirements of the PUD overlay are carried with the property, so there are no changes to the PUD. To the next slide, public hearing. Are there any questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to rewind a little bit. Is this the same plat that was under discussion in early 2017 where there was solicited neighborhood input into the, at that time, potential rezoning of the area?
It's the same site, but it's this is the first preliminary plat that's been submitted.
Okay, but it is that site?
Yes.
Under discussion.
That is correct.
And Mike, since from the time when you saw it, it did come for the PUD. It was on January 2nd, 2018, and actually we saw it at that point under this one had a robust hearing on it as well. So you actually missed, I mean, it's kind of funny, but there's been another step since you last saw it, in fact.
Right. And the city council has proceeded to approve the PUD. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand.
Yeah. Lance, I was going to ask, and perhaps we want to hold this for the applicant or engineer. I had a mild question on, it looks like they're going to be having just the one main entrance instead of 2.
That is correct. Yes.
And fire has said that they can adequately navigate the way as planned.
The existing configuration meets the fire code. Yes.
And then on the flood control stuff with the 100-year FEMA flood zone in the front, will engineering be addressing that with their final plat?
Yes, and the applicant could probably answer that question better.
Okay.
So,
Any other questions for staff? All right, thank you, Lance. We will now open the public hearing. And we're gonna have people come up to speak in favor, but if you don't mind, I'd like to start with the engineer since we've had some questions raised. Assuming someone is here from the applicant. Yes, sir. Please come up and state your name for the record. Name and address, please.
Stephen Gose with Gose and Associates, 113 East 8, here on behalf of the applicant. Lance's report covers it all to address the fire lane. The PUD presented to City Council on the night they considered it had a driveway to 11th, but one of the conditions of the approval was to remove that drive. So the T turnaround that's in there meets the fire code. The fire marshal has reviewed it through this process and didn't have any concerns with what was shown. With regard to the floodplain, we're still complying with the conditions of the Board of Drainage Appeals that we had for the request to not provide detention and do the little bit of fill. As this project is going through construction, once it gets a little further along, we'll submit the required FEMA letter showing the elevation of the building relative to the flood.
So whatever those two front buildings will have pad elevation to ensure they're...
Correct. They'll be at least 12 inches above the floodplain.
Okay. Thank you.
And if there's any other questions, I'm here to answer them.
Yeah, Steve, what is mentions the residential character of the offices?
Yes.
What does that really consist of?
They've got composite shingle roofs and 8-12 pitch. They're all single-story buildings that get like a 8 or 9 foot eave. They're stucco and brick on the outside. They're not super modern looking, super tall. I mean, they've got 8-12 pitches. They're still pretty, you know, they got a roof on them, but not like the one across the street that's a whole extra story and a half. So it's just that single story. They were all restricted in the size of the building they could be. I think the biggest, I left it over there, it's like 3,500 square feet once it's all said and done. The building that's out there today is 2,700 or 2,800 square feet. And that's all in the PUD. There's some perspectives of the building, like an orthographic, orthometric, good words for me. And there's a write-up of what the siding needs to look like, the roof pitch, that kind of thing. So that's what's addressing that, is through that PUD.
So, this is signed. And so based on what we heard about the fire department, even though the way that the end of the parking is, they call for egress, but there won't be any actual egress onto the private street lately.
No, and Blakely's not even, well, it's a private drive. It's not even
yeah.
a street.
Okay.
It's representation on some maps. It's not totally accurate.
Yeah, but we won't be putting traffic to that road.
No, the only access for vehicles to this property is the driveway on 12 Club. And pedestrians for that matter, unless somebody's walking across fence lines. And as it's built, as the building's built, fences, as dictated in the PUD, will be constructed along the property lines. Solid wood fences. Anything else?
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will call for the next person who wishes to speak in favor of the item. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak against the item, come on up and you're going to have
I'm
to...
not speaking against because,
Wait, hang on, ma'am, wait.
okay, I'll come up here.
Why don't you give us your name and address?
My name is Julie Couch. I live at 901 South Gray.
You're gonna have to,
Can you hear me?
Ms. Couch, remember the speakers, the microphones are not working.
Well, should I just speak loudly?
Yes, please, ma'am.
Okay. I'm Julie Couch. I live at 901 South Gray. I don't see this as a for or against hearing. It seems like a formality to me. But I will speak a little more to Mike Shanahan's comments. I'm speaking in order to make an observation about this original PUD decision. Since two of the planning commissioners were not on the planning commission when this decision was made, I realize tonight's decision is a formality. The original PUD decision was not a formality. It is an example of how both the planning commission and the city council need to make better zoning decisions. This land was zoned residential. The neighborhood's overlay proposal the council had asked the neighborhood to develop was going through the city processes when the developers of this land filed this PUD. The neighborhood's proposed overlay naturally included this land. Both the planning commission and the city council approved 3-2 the PUD in the middle of the neighborhood process. At that time, the property, besides being zoned residential, was part of a neighborhood. It was residential in the comprehensive plan. Across the street was a large empty office building with no takers. Within 3 to 4 blocks were 3 pharmacies, the Zook's, Tiger, and Charlie's. There's a 4th, Allen's, on 6th. There was no discussion of the importance of keeping 12th as a major road for travel and not turning it into another Perkins Road. Today, there's still a large empty office building on 12th across the street from this land, and it has no takers. There are still 4 pharmacies. The zoning decision, this zoning decision didn't help the neighborhood, nor does it help the city. The city needs to make a better process for zoning decisions. Thank you.
Is anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
My name is Shirley Weeks. I live at 71 University Circle. I'm not speaking for or against, I just have some questions.
That's fine. You may ask questions, but we may or may not be answering them.
Fine.
That's not the matter here.
I really love this picture. I don't know if you all have looked your brochure or not. There were a lot of questions about, was this lot filled legally? And I think if you look at this picture, you can see how much higher it is than the surrounding lots. So as this moves forward, I hope you'll pay close attention to the drainage on this lot. When I drove by last time behind the new drugstore, there's quite a dip. It's not a ditch yet, but there was quite a lot of water behind the drugstore, in between the drugstore and the housing behind it. So I think that that's going to be an issue, because you can see it quite a lot higher than the little houses on Lake Street. I'd like to know if the driveway that is not going to be used, that opens into the neighborhood, is there going to be a curb cut there?
The engineer is shaking his head no.
There's no pavement proposed behind the back row of parking in that 40-foot wide strip.
Okay, all right. It's been my experience that the administrative structure or procedures do not always pay close attention to protecting neighborhoods. Julie's given you the background on the lot. We all preferred that that area remain residential. So I hope that you're all listening, that there will be no curb cut into the neighborhood. I hope you're going to go and look and see the water behind the new drugstore. Because the best way that we can help this to be a desirable location, even though it was not welcomed by the neighborhood, is for all of the rules, regulations that were spoken to with the original HUD with a different owner. So you need to be aware, and our city needs to be aware of following the law as proposed. And it's single, does the requirement be that it can only be a single story?
I believe so.
That's a legal requirement, not just what the... And will the owner develop these buildings, or will he sell individual lots?
It all depends on what is being asked by the people interested in building it, or buying lots.
And how will those be if there's not a buyer? That will be a lawn and built into it?
It's my understanding he'll know until the end of days.
If you have questions about the, how PUDs are enforced down the road, maybe ask on the staff to help you after the hearing as well. Because you're asking some procedural questions, and yeah, there are contractual requirements that outline a lot of these things, so you can find that out from planning.
Thank you. We have a lot of laws and regulations in our city that are not obeyed. A lot of times, the laws, if you come and say a citizen is violating this law, the city will inspect and perhaps bring that into compliance. But I would like to ask you, as a planning board, to take a step further than that and be aware of the importance that all of the rules and regulations of this code are followed. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak against or neutrally on this case item?
Is that for everything in the area for that?
Yeah, primarily for the building, for those two uses, the copy shop and also the proposed lot. Yes, that is correct.
So that the other lot is the one associated with stuff further to the south.
Correct.
And do they have, is the requirement to get an alcohol license is completely separate from this process? I mean, presumably, even if we approve this, they still have to get.
Correct. They have to go to the Able Commission, which is a state agency to require that.
And this would just allow this use, and presumably if they don't get it, they don't go forward or they change it, but it's separate. Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions for staff? Great. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
All right, we will now open the public hearing for this item. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the item, please step forward and give your name and address for the record.
My name is Scott Lester, and I live at 14623 Paisley Lane in Perkins, which ain't actually in Perkins, but I live down south. My wife and I, and a business colleague for the last 25 years, and I and his wife, and some more friends of ours that operate a tavern in Oklahoma City and have for the last 12 years, are looking at this property owned by Mr. Barry Patton. And quickly, I grew up in Stillwater. We moved here in '70. My dad was a police officer from '70 to 2003 or 4. I was a Stillwater firefighter here from '84 to '94. I grew up in this town, and all of my life growing up, that was it used to be the old Mason jar. And then it became Bandoleros when Mac Overholt bought it. I was working there when I met my wife. And then Justin Hendricks, who I affectionately call Judd, put that laundromat in there and has had it ever since. And he has since moved out north of town. And I spent 25 years playing music. I'm in a band called The Great Divide, and we're kind of a part of that red dirt music scene that started here with my neighbor Jimmy LaFave and Bob Childers and some other guys in the 70s. Jimmy used to have a bar on the strip called Tico's Tavern in the mid and late 70s. But the point of all this is, we've decided that we're at a point in our life we'd like to put an establishment in that is not just a bar or a tavern, but somewhat of a museum, to pay homage to the music scene that has developed out of this town, is obviously spread across the country. For example, we played at the first and second annual Mile Zero Fest in Key West the last couple of years, which is strictly a red dirt music festival. It's a 4-day deal, and it's gotten really big over the years. And we just kind of want to show other people and have a place for people to come and learn a little bit of the history and drink a cold beer on game day and have a good time. Try to put things back to the way it was when I was growing up. Well, that's all I got to say about that.
Any questions? Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the item? Seeing 3 people left in the audience. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition or neutrally to the item? Right. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and call for staff alternatives.
Your alternatives are, you can approve the warrant, you can approve the warrant with conditions, you can deny the warrant, or you can table it to a future date.
Any discussion?
I move to accept findings and approve the warrant request as presented.
I second that.
We have a motion. We'll now vote.
Ms. Tony Braun,
Yes.
Mr. Shanahan,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Rickleman,
Yes.
Mr. Rom.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right.
This is different between the tavern and
All right, this concludes the public hearing portion of the meeting. We will now have a item 3, which would be approval of meeting summaries. We have 2 sets of minutes. Does anyone have any corrections, clarifications, comments that they need to request or at issue?
Yes, I do. And my apologies to Cindy already.
No need to
It's
apologize.
not an easy job to take notes and make summaries.
Which
But
one?
it's in the discussion.
Which dates?
It's
The February 26th minutes.
correct. And in my comments, there were 2 points I wanted to make in those comments. She captured
Page 11.
page 11 of
11.
12,
Okay.
midway down the page.
Okay.
There were 2 points I wanted to make. She captured the second one, the importance of protecting the overlay. But one other point that I made was that healthy neighborhoods are of economic value to the city. And you can make the comment that way.
All right, glad, good comment.
Healthy
Yeah,
neighborhoods
neighborhoods.
are of economic value to the city. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, it's all.
Anything on either of them? No?
I move approval of item 3A and B with the stated correction.
Motion.
Second. Yes.
Ms. Jerome.
Yes.
Thank you. Both sets of minutes are approved.
Thank you. All right, we will now, let's see, we have, let me mention that at least I think there will be a placemaking conference for urban planners, planning commissioners, and other people of interest in Oklahoma City next Monday. And I think a couple of us are going to be attending to that. I'm sure we'll be learning lots of interesting things. And I don't have any other comments to staff. We've mentioned that hopefully we'll be back to our full electronic panoply by the next meeting. Does
We
any,
meet at 6:30 a.m. on April 1st.
I didn't,
On the east side.
Yes.
yeah, because the signing in is like, they start signing in pretty early, but I think they're gonna have snacks. Let's hope.
Let's hope they stop for coffee.
They inevitably will have coffee, right?
Mr. Carnes will stop.
I can't get rid of Mr. Carnes.
Yes.
Anyone else going? Are you, Vicki, are you here going?
Yes, I'm going.
It does. I don't know if it's too late to register right now, that the conference is ready to be closed already. So our city engineer, Monty Klein, will be attending, his engineer, Greg Adams, will be attending. The three commissioners here, and Lance will be attending, but he's going to leave from his home just outside of Guthrie. And you guys.
We'll see him down there, make sure he attends.
Please do.
Did you say two city assistants? Two-
One is city engineer, Monty Klein.
And just his assistant?
And then another engineer, yes, engineer, Greg Adams.
Oh. And would you be able to at least check on the registration, or if there's anything possible for Vicki to attend, if it?
Again, she'll send me an email requesting to, yes, I can try to check and see if there's something available.
Why don't you go ahead, because, I mean,
I'll
the
check.
registration was only, like, the registration was quite reasonable, so.
That's the reason I did the registration.
It sounds like you're kind of busy, yeah.
It's,
Okay.
Busy time of year.
Well, I hope we see you. I'll leave it to you two to coordinate, and we'll see you, or we won't. Okay. Is there any city items? No city items that we need to know? All right, seeing none, we will mention that the next planning commission meeting is scheduled for April 2nd, 2019, here. And
Move to adjourn.
Second.